Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Medical Myths, the show about what not to do with your body. And today is a topic that was suggested to me by the lovely Renewed Views HR in the side chat. But this is one that I should not have to go in depth about why this is problematic. Um, but I get the feeling that a lot of people may think that these people are joking. Um, but they're not. They're not joking. This is an actual belief system. We are talking about breatharianism, which is the idea that you, as a human, can reach your spiritual potential by eating via photosynthesis and breathing and not requiring food. Uh, yeah, it sounds ridiculous, and it is ridiculous. We're going to get into more detail about that. Like really, I could end the stream here and just say, yeah, you need to eat. Like this is a time where you can use your common sense and think, should I be eating? And the answer is yes, you should eat. You will not survive if you do not eat. But since this is a show, and y'all are here for a bit more in-depth opinions, we are going to do that. So uh we've got a lot of people in the side chat here. We've got Ascalon, HR, AJ, Jess, Jamie. So welcome to here. And I know the poll in the side chat is a bit silly because I mean this topic is a bit silly. So uh we're gonna watch a couple videos and get into kind of what they claim, what they're telling people to do before we get into some debunk on this. So let's watch. So this is a short, and this person wrote a poem uh, that many people, I think, in the side chat of this are saying that this is metaphorical. It sounds very metaphorical. It sounds just like a person, you know, trying to say, "Hey, get out in nature," and they're not understanding that this is literal. He means this literally. So I will let you all listen to this.
Right now in the grass, I'm eating right now through my feet. My friend, you are whole and complete.
Eating through
I'm
your
eating
feet.
right now through my skin. Blessings, the body we're in. I'm eating right now through my nose. Right? Don't you suppose? I'm eating right now through my eyes. When I look at the sun in the sky, I am eating right now through my eyes.
I hope you're not eating through your eyes.
I'm eating
I
right
hope you're
now
not
through my
staring at the
breath.
sun.
I'm eating right now, I confess. I'm eating right now through the trees, the magnificent leaves. They help us to breathe. I'm eating right now. Woo! Come on, baby.
Yeah, so if we look at the comments for this, we've got damn, that man looks full of joy. Uh and of course someone comments, influencers, they fake joy in videos. This one is starving. Yeah, I mean this is again, he's not being metaphorical here. He believes that you are actually eating through all these different parts of your body just by standing outside in the sun, which I'm going to caution everybody to not stare at the sun. That is not helpful and can cause blindness, and also to wear sun protection if you're going to be outside. But the sentiment here seems reasonable, right? The sentiment that uh, you can get joy from being outside, you can get fulfillment in the fact that you're getting in touch with nature. Uh, the fact is, you do improve your vitamin D synthesis from being outside, and it's essential to that particular function. Trees do produce oxygen that we can breathe. There are some legitimately positive things that he's saying here. And I could see this metaphorically being something to say, hey, go outside for a bit. Hey, be thankful for the fact that we can breathe oxygen and that we have this beautiful earth that we're living on. That is fine, but we're gonna take it steps further.
You see my feet?
And actually accidentally scrolled down. We can watch Dr. Glockenflecken later on. He's hilarious if I haven't seen him. But yeah, so there's a lot of criticism in this side chat. A lot of people saying I'm a building. That's cool. All right. Next one, we're gonna watch a different one here. I do not, in fact, see his feet. Here's another one. So this is where his viewpoints get a little bit more literal and pretty scary. So this one talks about where are your nutrients if you don't eat food. Hashtag breatharian, hashtag breatharianism. So let's hear what these people have to say. And I love this comment that says, keep breathing air, girl. I mean, yeah, keep breathing air, but please put something else in your body as well.
What's challenging is people will keep asking me, what about your nutrients? What about your vitamins? How are you building your blood if you're not eating anything? When I was in my drastic state where maybe I'm just dry fasting or just maybe once a week I would eat something or something like this, I felt very healthy. I felt nutrients in the breath that I'm breathing in. I felt
the
water in the breath I'm breathing in. One of the things that I found that was challenging is people will keep asking me, what about your nutrients?
Okay,
what about
repeating? So the comments, this is the most frequently asked question, and for most people, it's hard to understand. And because we've been programmed to believe that food gives life and all nutrients, which we know is false simply by observing people on simple, basic diets being much healthier than others, taking all the different food supplements, etc. Can you give me a citation, please? And I mean, the fact that this is random name, bunch of numbers, like these are probably all bots. We got user, bunch of letters and numbers. Like this is clearly a bot. And this comment, she looks like she hasn't missed a meal yet. There, I said it. Come on, people, get real. You found nutrients in the breath that you are breathing. Scientifically speaking, that's impossible, ma'am. Yeah, guy, he's starving himself, possible quite often, but the girl ain't. No way. I mean, yeah, neither one of these two are probably starving themselves. Some lady did, and this is all still like the same bots. I mean, these bots are kind of against these claims, and they're pretty funny. Lady, did you sleep in your school? Do you even know what vitamins are and what they do in the body? Probably not. Like, she has probably zero idea. You don't feel them. Yeah, you don't need a doctor to sit here and tell you that you don't feel vitamins as they're coming in your body. It took centuries of scurvy before people realized what vitamin C is. Vitamin deficiencies don't hit you in a week, and they get into a lot of good points with that. But yeah, people who don't even have the basic understanding of nutrition trying to go out and say, we are going to be okay by not eating anything at all. So there's some influencer examples, but let's go into what is the actual claim. What are they telling people to do on these diets? And I found a few different pages that go into this. So this page is your fasting coach, and that tells you kind of a lot that you need to know. This is specifically a fasting page. They say some of the most common questions asked about breatharianism are, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit for you all in the audience. Is breatharianism possible? How will it affect my body? What about eating food, and will it compromise my digestive system? What is prana and pranic nourishment? How to start being breatharian? So of course he has a YouTube channel. He has a Facebook page. You can hire him to coach you. So he has some financial incentives for this. And there are all these YouTube videos about pranic living. So how to become breatharian. There are several breatharian initiation processes known to us today. Some run the course of a few years, while others last just a few days. So the idea is you go through one of these processes, and then if you are spiritually aligned enough, if your vibrational frequencies are balanced just right, then you will be able to handle not eating for many, many years, or even possibly for the rest of your life, is what the claim is. So they have the 21-day process, which is the first in the world. Many people have already experienced it. It is considered to be very challenging due to the isolation and week-long dry fast, which a dry fast is no food and no liquids. And we'll get into why that's problematic. Again, I should not have to explain that, but we will get into that. The 8-day process, it's much easier than 21 days of dry fasting. 10-day process, where they researched the advantages and disadvantages of both the 21-day and the 8-day, and then surveyed many others who passed transformation processes and created this process from the data they amounted. I love that they have, this is the first question, and they don't have the first question being what exactly is breatharianism. They say what spiritual practices can help develop the light body. So there's this other concept now of the light body. So we have this kind of dualism of the body versus the spirit, and well, solid food and liquids and water fuel your solid body, like your physical body. You need to nourish your light body. And so if your light body is healthy, then your physical body won't need any of these things. And I honestly don't know how people can look at nature and look at every other animal species and say, you know what? Those animals need to eat, but I don't because I'm superior. And like humans just don't need to eat. Like this is flat earth level conspiracy. Like we look at all the other planets, like, oh, look at all these that are round, but obviously ours is flat. It's the same kind of thing here. There are many things which may raise our levels of awareness on the topic of the light body. It's important to note that there's nothing that replaces the energetic transformation process, and one cannot simply stop eating. So at least they're telling people to ease into it, but we'll see that they're not really doing an effective job at easing into this, and it doesn't even matter. You should not be easing yourself into a lifetime of starvation. That is unhealthy. There are many possible practices in order to experience the body's cleansing, the wonderful feeling of lightness, and the constant connection to our higher self. So what you do first is you practice water fasting for 2 weeks. It's best to practice things on a specific day of the week and once a week. If done once every 2 weeks, most begin to compromise intentions and to forget since the interims are too long. This is some absolute nonsensical Deepak Chopra word salad right here. So it's best to practice things on a specific day of the week and once a week. Okay, so that's just a very odd phrasing to say you should do everything, practice things once a week on the same day every week. If done once every 2 weeks, most begin to compromise intentions. So don't compromise your intentions on that. Take notice of the feeling of hunger/thirst. Recognize that these are only feelings. The feeling of hunger is only a feeling. Just as feeling hot, cold, or pleasant, not pleasant are simply feelings. And no, these are grounded in survival mechanisms. And it goes beyond just feeling. Even something as kind of abstract as pleasant and not pleasant, those relate to dopamine and serotonin in the brain. If you don't get that release of dopamine while doing something, it's probably going to be not pleasant for you. And yes, there are ways to overcome um, like the urge to not do something because it's not pleasant. You can kind of override those that dopamine drive. However, hunger and thirst and hot and cold are completely different mechanisms. Uh, Thinking about hormonal influences and the specific processing in the brain, like hot and cold is your sense of temperature regulation, which is necessary for survival. One of the things that we discussed pretty early on in medical education is the difference between fever and hyperthermia, which both of them relate to uh, body temperature and the threshold of acceptable body temperature. So your body has a pretty specific range of uh, where your temperature can sit when you're healthy. When you have a fever, that's a time when your brain recognizes, hey, there's a problem. We need to get rid of this. You have this adaptive mechanism where you increase the threshold that your body is allowed to get to. So this is a regulated increase in body temperature. And that can be useful. There are times when fever can get out of control and you can get more problems because your body temperature gets too high and start denaturing proteins. But for the most part, when you have a fever, you're still within your body's regulatory system. Something on the flip side is hyperthermia, where you experience heat above the temperature threshold, but this is uncontrolled. So you're exceeding the threshold, but your threshold isn't really changing, and you're not utilizing your mechanisms, or you don't have the mechanisms functional anymore to bring down your body temperature. And so having the internal thermostat, if you will, is very important for maintaining life and for making sure that fevers don't get too out of control. So hot and cold is not just a feeling. This is an important regulatory mechanism. Same thing with hunger and thirst. You have leptin and ghrelin, which tell you whether you need to eat or when you don't need to eat. And we'll get into the specifics of what nutrients we need, how not having nutrients is detrimental, and what can happen if you go on a prolonged fast and then suddenly start eating again. Because it is dangerous to go on a prolonged fast and just start eating like you were before. And it can actually kill you. So practice gratitude before eating and drinking, which this one I don't mind. I do think it's great to be thankful for your food and where it comes from. Not everybody has food, so that one is okay. Try to not be swayed by society. I mean, I kind of agree, but for different reasons. I think don't be swayed by societal pressures as far as like what the ideal body is or what the ideal diet is, because society is notoriously wrong. Uh, but moving on a little bit, does a breatharian entirely give up eating? First, we must understand that the deep purpose of being a breatharian is to rid ourselves of dependency from food, not to prove that we don't want to taste and enjoy things. So they believe that eating is a food dependency. Like that's almost as if you're saying oxygen dependency or uh vitamin dependency or brain function dependency. Like, yes, we have a food dependency because without it we would die. Same thing with oxygen. If we lose oxygen, we will die. Yeah, oxygen addiction. Oh man, I am so addicted to oxygen. I try to hold my breath, and every time I do that, I just run back to breathing. Like, this is how ridiculous this sounds. So some people choose to fast long term. Some people eat once or twice a week. Some people eat a little bit every day. And there's kind of the sense of intuitive eating where you listen to your body and, you know, see what you're supposed to do. But it's funny because they have that idea of like acting from a place of intuition and communication with their bodies, but at the same time, just a little bit higher, they said, recognize that feelings of hunger and thirst and hot and cold are just feelings. So they're saying that these are not reliable, these feelings don't matter, but also stay in touch with your body and just have intuition and listen to your body. So are you supposed to listen to your body? You're supposed to not listen to your body because yikes. And for the people here, how much is Big Oxygen paying? A lot. I mean, well, not enough really. They're not paying me as much as I would like. But and speaking of that, I don't have any wellness shots for this week. But I do have, the next best thing, which is Fireball. So if we get super chats and stuff today, we will probably be doing that. I also have this little can of something that I might do if we get some super chats, so or some memberships. But hang in there. We're gonna keep trudging through this. How many calories do you consume? It can be said that on average, a breatharian consumes 20% of the caloric intake they consumed prior, which is absolute insanity. That's somewhere between 200 and 500 calories per day. With that, the question of caloric intake does not faithfully serve the purpose. And not only in this context, when one studies nutrition in depth, all right, let me know exactly what you know about nutrition, because this is something that has been thrown around a lot recently, notably within the administration, talking about how circumcisions cause autism, and because a certain president has studied this in depth, or like has studied this for years or for a long time or whatever he said. I don't believe you. I do not believe that you've actually studied this, because when you study nutrition, if you honestly learn about the processes of how metabolism occurs and how your hormones are regulated, how these signals are processed, you have no choice really but to find that you have to eat food to survive. But they say that when you study nutrition in depth, you find that calories are just the tip of the iceberg, and that focusing on them doesn't really provide an efficient means of evaluating one's nutrition. Which, okay, that sentence I kind of agree with, that you should not solely be focusing on calories in, calories out, because if you're like with the carnivore diet, you could be eating 2,000 calories a day on carnivore and still not be getting optimum nutrition, and still get scurvy or get infections from like diverticulitis and stuff, because you're not eating fiber. The calories, I would agree, the calories themselves do not necessarily matter as much as the nutrition, but when you're not eating, you're not getting the nutrition either. So this is just pseudoscientific bullshit that they are trying to sound intelligent about. For example, according to the caloric method, yeah, so I would agree with that. This ignores the fact that milk creates a higher acidity pH in the body, which allows for the development of bacteria. It also causes mucus that doesn't digest well for most people. Therefore, although the cheese may indeed supply the number of calories written on the packaging, the body will need to use a lot more energy to process all the other substances that entered the body along with the cheese. Contrastingly, an apple has no toxins whatsoever. Excuse me? There is arsenic in apple seeds. Apparently, that is not toxic, according to these people. It has vitamins, minerals, dietary fibers, antioxidants, and a range of other ingredients beneficial to the body and which do not demand a high usage of energy in digestion. So they're getting to a point, which I did agree with them on, that the quality of the calories matters more than the quantity alone. However, the logic that they use to get to this point is vastly incorrect, and the fact that they're leaning so heavily into pH balance in the body, and I'm very, very excited to talk about some pH today, because pH is heavily related to kidney function. And you're going to tell me that a lower pH or higher acidity is a problem and leads to the development of bacteria, which we know that there's a difference between beneficial and pathogenic bacteria. But there's something key in here that will lead to a higher acidity in the body than eating dairy. Like, let's think about this for a second. Starving yourself. Starving yourself leads to acidosis, which is fatal if uncorrected. And we will get into that maybe in just a second. So, the breatharian lifestyle presents an ideal solution. So they are recommending this to people who, for one who is interested in a perfect nutritional lifestyle by not eating. By ridding ourselves of the experience of hunger, there follows no need to eat simply in order to satisfy the hunger. Which now they're getting into weird territory because they were saying, "Hey, don't eat," but now they seem to be covering their butts a little bit, saying that, "Oh, well, we're just saying you don't need to eat in order to satisfy your hunger." Which, what does that even mean? Like, I guess they're saying that you should do it for enjoyable reasons, which this sounds like a cop out for the people who are breatharian and can't survive on that. And so they're like, oh, well, I'm not hungry. I feel better on this air only diet, but I'm just eating for the funsies. I'm not actually ruining my spiritual experience. I don't need to eat, but I'm going to because it's fun for me, which eat for fun. Like, I'm not going to say that that's necessarily a bad thing if you have a healthy relationship with food, but that's absolute bullshit. Like, you're telling me, so the people who believe these influencers, you're telling me that influencers are inherently honest about their crash diets? Like, the fact that they're posting 20-second videos or like 3-minute videos about something, and then you don't see any of the rest of their dietary habits, tells me that they're not able to demonstrate it and clearly not trying to. Like, movie magic is real. They can pretend whatever they want as influencers and people are going to believe them. But they're, as soon as the camera turns off, they're eating all that food. Like, they're probably going to a Taco Bell down the street and laughing all the way because they're getting so much money from being breatharian influencers, which is just insane to me. Like, the fact that you're gonna scam people. I'm sure some of these people actually believe this, but you're gonna scam people into thinking they don't need to eat food and then shame them if they still need to eat because they're hungry, and just say that's just a feeling. Just get over it. Come on. Uh why oh, this is a great one. Why aren't there any scientific studies proving that breatharians are for real? They say that there's a number of videos that have been completed, but they don't cite any of them. They just say, go see the video section. So they want to get some of that algorithm benefits. Scientific studies have indeed been carried out, but none of them have gotten the full spotlight exposure as of yet. Okay, then cite them. Additionally, there's connection between various studies in various places in which there were agreements between the investigators and the investigated that if the experiment succeeds, then the findings will be published for the world to see, and if not, the whole concept will be presented as a lie. Okay, so you're claiming this. Give me the demonstration. Give me the numbers. Give me your p-values. Like, if this is the same thing as you saying I claim to study nutrition, then I don't believe you. Let's look at this. Yeah, so if you click on that link, that study link, it takes you to his list of hashtags and YouTube videos. And that's it. It does not take you to any studies whatsoever. So that should be a big red flag. So the videos are where the studies are published. Yeah, totally valid. Definitely, it's definitely saying that YouTube videos are equal in evidence to publications. I don't think they know what a study is. How is all this possible according to science? It's currently not supported by our science. But hold on a second. It's currently not supported by our science, but there have been a number of studies that have been completed. So it's been proven, but it's not supported by science. So which is it? There's going to say that since science only focuses on material things, that therefore they're going to give this like claim that can't be disproven. For example, healing via intention and the transfer of energy, considered a placebo effect. Although there are many, many accounts of people who experience significant healing, there are a number of independent research centers in the world that are researching like phenomena. Yet they're researching the placebo effect. They're not claiming it's healing via intention and the transfer of energy. That is pseudoscientific bullshit. And there's no way to measure the percentages of prana. So prana is like the spiritual force that they are claiming. What happens to the digestive system? If we consider the internal organs of the digestive system likened to the filters of a car, we realize that the more we ride the car, consequently, the filters and the engine will wear out faster. I mean, you're going to die whether or not you eat, but you're actually going to die faster if you don't eat. This is not like the filters of a car. This is like fueling your car. If you don't fuel your car will not run anymore. It doesn't matter how much or little you drive. I mean, the more you drive the car, the more fuel you're going to use, but that's not akin to how much you eat. That's akin to how many years you are alive. Like your fuel starts to run out like as soon as you're born onto this planet, and then that runs out over time. This analogy is very, very faulty. So naturally, the more we use our internal systems, the higher the chances of erosion and ultimately developing some sort of future issue. No, absolutely not. The blood test and surgery following the death of a mature breatharian woman demonstrate the internal systems that stay at a much healthier and younger state than those found in other people. Prove it. Okay, so what measures are you using to suggest healthier and younger state? Are like they're saying the blood test and surgery following the death, like the surgery meaning the autopsy. Are you saying that they have a younger looking body on autopsy, which is a bit, you know what that says to me? It sounds like they're dying sooner. My mic is acting up. Sorry about that. Let me see if, I don't know why my gain was weird for a second. But yeah, like one reason why you could have on the gain is like auto adjusting. I'm gonna have to, it's because the mic updated. That's why I'm gonna have to go fix that. But what this tells me is that an autopsy and labs seem younger because these people died younger, which is not the bonus that these people think it is. And then I love this thing about what about female breatharians, which they're really getting at pregnancy, which is a very scary thought. So let's get into some real world examples of people doing this. So first I'm going to show, not that one. All right. So this is a family. This headline says Breatharian couple survives on the universe's energy instead of food. This was published back in 2017. And so this is the family. This is a Breatharian mom and dad of two have barely eaten for 9 years. 9 years as they live off of the universe's energy. husband and wife, these two people, believe that food and water aren't necessary and humans can be sustained solely by the energy of the universe. And this couple has a 5-year-old son and a 2-year-old daughter, have survived on little else besides a piece of fruit or vegetable broth just 3 times per week since 2008. And the wife even practiced a breatharian pregnancy, not eating anything during the entire 9 months that she carried her first child. And I call bullshit. I call absolute bullshit on that. The married couple of 9 claim that their food-free lifestyle has improved their health and emotional well-being, as well as letting them spend money on traveling rather than the weekly groceries. This sounds like child abuse. So these two live between California and Ecuador. Explained, humans can easily live without food, easily, as long as they're connected to the energy that exists in all things through breathing. For 3 years, we didn't eat anything at all, and now we only eat occasionally, like if we're in a social situation or simply if I want to taste a fruit. So you're willing to sacrifice the health of your children to make a point that humans don't need to eat food. Like, how cruel is that? With my first child, I practiced a breatharian pregnancy. Hunger was a foreign sensation to me, so I fully lived on light and ate nothing. My blood tests during all 3 trimesters were impeccable, and I gave birth to a healthy baby boy. I call absolute bullshit on that too, because something that is physiologically common within pregnancy is iron deficiency, because you get dilution of the blood volume, because since you have extra circulation between the birthing parent and the gestation, you have to maintain a lot higher blood volume to keep that circulation going. And you could theoretically increase the amount of blood cells, but what happens is you increase the amount of water within the bloodstream, the amount of plasma, and so in that you get a lower concentration of red blood cells, which makes you anemic. In a lot of cases, uh, parents will complain about like feeling dizzy and stuff from anemia. And so in that case, nutrition is absolutely important to help provide extra iron so that the body can produce more red blood cells as needed for when you're feeling symptomatic anemia. So in addition to that, having nutrition such as folate. Folate deficiency is linked, and I can't even, like, when I say linked, I mean like an actual causal relationship established between folate deficiency and neural tube defects. So, namely, spina bifida is kind of the big one that we prevent against. And in uh, like more developed countries, there is way lower risk of spina bifida because we're able to supplement and fortify our food with folate. In third world countries, you have higher risk of neural tube defects and spinal cord defects because of that nutritional deficiency. We can also talk about deficiencies in vitamin A, vitamin K. I mean, vitamin K is not really going to be produced much by the baby until they're not relying on maternal uh, circulation anymore. So about 8 days after delivery, they'll start developing that, which is why we give vitamin K shots. So like this is incredibly irresponsible and dangerous. And because they had a normal pregnancy, I'm calling absolute bullshit that they are just like saying this and didn't actually do it. Yeah, so they did the 21 day breatharian process. Luckily, they say they haven't made their kids do it apart from the pregnancy, but you did make them do it during the pregnancy. Like you forced that upon your child. And if your child did have neural tube defects, then I feel like these people would have a very different response to this. And like this is why I'm so passionate about this particular show. And like it can sound like I'm getting on people's cases about relatively minor things. Like I know there were some disagreements during the chat about carnivore diet, but that situation is like not as extreme as this, but carnivore is causing similar processes as this level of starvation. And exposing children to this before they're even born is cruel, and should not be praised, should not be recommended to anybody. So I'm going to show you all some complications of this beyond me just saying the obvious that we need to eat food to survive. But people have real complications. So the people that listen to this advice end up going on these chat forums and saying, is what I'm doing normal? Like, am I doing this right? So this person says, hello, I haven't posted in forever. Happy to be able to share this. So I made some hippie friends 3 years ago that I know a guy who lives off of prana, basically just through breathing air and absorbing nutrition straight from the source. You also get nutrition through the sun and baths. Your skin absorbs the water as if you drink it. It's crazy, which no, your skin does absorb water and nutrients, but not to that extent. There are things that are more easily absorbed by the skin. Water is one of them, but the skin is a protective barrier. There are reasons why it's harder to absorb things through the skin. And if you go back and watch my video on fentanyl, people claiming that you can get fentanyl overdoses just by touching it. No, like you can cover your hands in fentanyl patches, leave them on for several hours, and nothing will happen to you because fentanyl is not well absorbed through the skin. And even as fentanyl patches, like the dosage that you're getting over time is so low because of that. And so with fentanyl, we use that protective barrier of the skin to help prevent overdosing on like transcutaneous medication. So nutrition does not work this way. So this process is described by Jasmuheen, who she died, and we'll get into what happened with her. It's crazy. 1 week with no food, no water, and 2 weeks with diluted orange juice with no pulp. The third day, I was crying. I'm not spiritual enough for this, but we've had a lot of support, and the book helps you out a lot. The clarity you start getting during the fast is epic. It's like you start to understand so much more, and things seem obvious. On the 6th night, nobody slept. After a while, it's hard to sleep. You have crazy dreams. On the last few days, I could start seeing some visuals like static, like the TV was starting to turn off or something, and the world seemed a lot less real. That is called syncope. That is you pass it. Well, and technically in that case, it'd be like near syncope if you didn't actually fully pass out, but you were experiencing the phenomenon of passing out. That is what the static thing is. It's like when you stand up too quickly and your blood pressure drops. That's not normal. You should not be experiencing that. And you should probably eat something. One of the things that we ask people when they come in, especially younger people, if they have near syncope and they show up and we say, have you eaten anything today? And they say no, it's like, okay, well, that's why. That is why you were having this. Yeah, hypoglycemia is definitely part of this. So there's plenty of reasons why you're feeling that, and that is not normal. On the 8th day, when you start drinking, I saw fractals open up like if I had taken some ayahuasca. And also one of the nights I tried visualizing a spirit giving me light, water, and air. I fall out hallucinated the being. She seemed 40 years old, made of strings of light, and I felt like she was Mother Gaia. So you start hallucinating, again, probably from poor blood sugar regulation and not getting nutrients to your brain. That is what happened. So let's get into some other details about this. Where is it? Did I close? I might have closed this one. Oh, yeah. No, I didn't. Okay, here we go. I just found the right page. Share screen. Not that one. Here we go. Okay. So, Breatharian fatalities. We had Verity Lynn, a 49-year-old woman, died in a remote part of Scotland after attempting the Breatharian conversion. Timo Degen, I'm butchering these names, a kindergarten teacher, tried the Breatharian plan and slipped into a coma. He recovered after 4 weeks of IV drips, only to die a short while later. Lonnie Morris kept a diary throughout her time as a breatharian. A mother of 9 died with symptoms of pneumonia, severe dehydration, kidney failure, and effects of a severe stroke. She was in the care of 2 breatharians, Jim and Eugenia Pesnak. Isolated, Morris had the understanding that she would receive orange juice after 1 week and nothing at all for 2 weeks after that. She indicated in her diary that she dreamed of food. She lost the use of her legs, became incontinent, and began coughing up a black sticky fluid. The Pesnaks claimed that they did not know Morris was seriously ill until it was too late. Yeah, and so the criticisms here are absolutely legitimate. On top of the toll that not eating food can take on your body, critics of breatharianism have also spoken out against the movement, saying it does not promote a healthy relationship with food. Absolutely. If you are believing that food is a problem, that dependence on food is a problem, you are going to get a lot of eating disorders. And in fact, I think a lot of people who are breatharian end up like having an eating disorder. Like that's probably the best way that I could characterize this movement. The people who actually believe in this and are doing it have eating disorders, and they feel a certain way while they're doing it because of the release. Like when you have anorexia or bulimia, you feel some kind, and I'm not speaking from a place of somebody who has never struggled with any of these before. But as I understand it, you will feel some form of release of stress when you don't eat something, or when you stick to not intaking calories, because that's your relationship with food. You have this shame relationship with food. And so, sure, you might feel a little bit better because you are avoiding that piece of stress, and you're getting a little bit of that release. Kind of similarly with OCD. Like, you don't need to be doing those things repetitively, but in doing that, you have some stress release that you get from that. And so I would go as far as to classify this as a full-blown eating disorder. What happens to your body as a breatharian? Without food, the body must find another way to maintain glucose levels. At first, it brings down glycogen, then turns to proteins and fats. The liver turns fatty acids into byproducts called ketone bodies until there are too many of them to process. So we'll get into this a little bit in depth. So kind of like we got into with the carnivore diet, this is a delicate interplay between all of the metabolic processes within human physiology. And welcome, Theo. I am going to share a little picture. And this isn't a full diagram. This is just an overview of human metabolism. It's not like the big overlapping one that I showed last time. So this is a simplified map. And so we have here, you have, let's say you eat something and that is digested. You get glucose from the carbohydrates that you're eating, and that goes through the pathway of glycolysis. You get glucose 6-phosphate, goes into glycolysis, becomes pyruvate. Pyruvate is then the molecule that goes into the citric acid cycle, and then the NAD plus and FAD plus or the NADH and the FADH also goes into, it takes electrons to the electron transport chain, and you get ATP production. This is pretty much basic biology that you maybe had in high school or college. Kind of adding on to that, we have some additional pathways here. We have glycogenolysis, which takes the glycogen that you've stored in your body and turns it into glucose 6-phosphate so it can undergo glycolysis. But what happens when you're not intaking enough food? So if you don't have glucose, you obviously can't really do that first step. So you're going to rely on glycogen. Once you deplete all of your glycogen, which is your stored sugar, you are going to rely on fats and proteins. And the thing is with that, as we talked about with the carnivore diet, and as we will talk about later on with keto, it can be very problematic if you're not doing it correctly, because the thing that you need in order to make more sugar for the rest of your body is pyruvate. So you'll see the double arrows here. So there's arrows going up and arrows going down. Those signify reversible processes. So these are processes that can go back and forth depending on what your body needs. When you're breaking down fatty acids, you're going to generate ketone bodies, which keto proponents will say is the only thing you need to live off of, and you don't need to worry about this other stuff because carbs are bad. That's a bit straw manning, but that's the kind of more extreme carnivore take on that. The problem is not every part of your body can utilize ketone bodies. The brain can, the heart does primarily, like the primary user of ketone bodies is the heart, and then skeletal muscle can use it. The liver cannot. Most other organs cannot use ketone bodies. So you have to rely on some form of glucose in the bloodstream in order to keep surviving, which is why on keto, you should be having a little bit of carbs per day to help maintain that process. But let's say you have no carbs in your body. You need to produce more glucose for all of your organs to survive. So you're going to undergo gluconeogenesis, which is the process of converting pyruvate back into glucose. And that's done in the liver. So you make more glucose, and that's that. The thing is, you cannot use fatty acids. Well, you can use fatty acids to get to acetyl-CoA. You cannot convert acetyl-CoA back to pyruvate. You notice that there's only one arrow going down from pyruvate to acetyl-CoA. It's because you cannot produce pyruvate. So the only way to get to pyruvate is through these carbohydrate-based processes. You can use the acetyl-CoA through ketone body formation or ketogenesis, and you can also put it back into the citric acid cycle, which can produce enough ATP to survive on. But like I mentioned in the carnivore situation, there are ketone bodies that are produced, and 3 of them in particular. One of them is acetoacetate, one of them is hydroxybutyrate, and the third one is acetone. And acetone needs to be processed and eliminated from the body because it can cause coma, it can cause a bunch of neurological toxicity, and it can kill you. So it's important to not have a buildup of acetone in your body. So that's where you need to be a lot more careful. One thing as well that you can use is protein. You can start metabolizing protein. And when you do that, you're of course taking that either from dietary protein, which these people are not doing. They're not eating protein. So where is it going to pull the protein from? It's going to pull it from your muscle tissue. So you're going to get muscle atrophy. And that's going to be utilized to provide substances for gluconeogenesis. Skeptoidia says, I'm a breatharian. Yeah, I'm a breathe air until I die, preferably sometime well into my 90s, just like my great grandmothers. Yeah, I mean, if breatharianism was just breathing until I die, like I totally believe you. And with that, we will partake in some of this. But like I mentioned with the pH statement a bit earlier, there's a big problem here with acidosis, specifically starvation ketoacidosis. And I'm going to pull up stat pearls because I feel like people would want at least to be able to read this and not have me just blather about it. So here we go, ketoacidosis. So typically we think about ketoacidosis in the context of type 1 diabetes. You can also get it in type 2 diabetes. And the way that this happens is essentially going into a starvation mode because you cannot pull glucose into the cells. And so if you can't bring glucose into the cells, your cells think that there is no glucose and it needs to make more. So that's the fun thing about these reversible reactions. So when you build up enough of the product of that reaction, it's going to keep moving that cascade along. But if you don't have enough of that, you're not going to shut down that process. So your body thinks that you need more of it. So when you have someone with diabetes, they have enough blood sugar, they just can't utilize it. And so then they make more sugar, and this process all happens. They produce lactic acid and they produce ketone bodies. Not as much lactic acid in these cases because that relies on a sugar processing pathway. But you get ketone bodies that build up, and you get acid in the blood. And if you've ever seen somebody with ketoacidosis, it is extremely, extremely dangerous. This is where people's comas are coming from. You can go into heart failure, like pretty quickly can go into arrhythmia and cardiac arrest, and it can cause long-term complications otherwise as well. So this is a big, big deal. And Theo, yes, I ended my carnivore diet because I felt absolutely miserable. And here's a huzzah to the fireball. Breatharians don't drink fireball, which is, well, I guess they technically could, but they don't do it for their hunger. They do it for the funsies. Where we go now? Okay, so here we go. We're not going to focus on all the other types of ketoacidosis, but in extremes of starvation, after the exhaustion of free glucose, and after that, the body's glycogen reserves, fatty acids become the primary fuel source. This usually happens after 2 or 3 days of fasting. After several days of fasting, protein catabolism starts. Muscles are broken down, releasing amino acids and lactate into the bloodstream, which can be converted into glucose by the liver. This biochemical process is responsible for the wasting and cachexia seen during starvation. And so cachexia is that wasting away appearance that you get in kind of end-stage cancer patients where all of their muscle mass is gone because they can't sustain their nutrition. So some other very problematic things of this. So you get significant fluid losses, you get dehydration, metabolic abnormalities, lead to lethargy, obtundation, and even cause respiratory failure, coma, and death, which there are reasons for that as well. So to try to keep this pretty simple, you have a few different mechanisms in your body to get rid of all this extra acid. And one of them, like I'll frame this as kind of two opposing but similar processes. You have the lungs, which of course take in oxygen and breathe out carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is acidic. And so in breathing out, you lose some of that carbon dioxide and help maintain a higher blood pH or reduced acidity. That is kind of your short-term management of your blood pH. So if you want your blood pH to be somewhere between 7.35 and 7.45, I've seen cases even in children with ketoacidosis with a pH of, was it 6.9, which is insane. I don't remember the lowest one I've ever seen, or if that was the lowest. But it's important to maintain that blood pH, and you have a buffer system, including the lungs, like I just mentioned, for very short-term management. So when you have a high amount of acid, you'll start breathing in and out really, really fast, and that's why, like, when people say don't breathe into a bag and stuff, it's like because you're messing with your ability to intake and expel carbon dioxide. So when you get DKA, there's this breathing sign called Kussmaul respirations, which is very, very deep, very, very fast breathing, and that is an attempt of the body to try to get rid of as much carbon dioxide as possible. So that's short-term management. If you have not enough acid in your blood, then you'll probably stop breathing or breathe more slowly. And so that's an easy way to kind of manage this. The other option for more long-term management is through the kidneys, because the kidneys can control how much acid and how much base are released into the urine and how much is retained. So there's a whole bunch of exchange systems present to make sure that you have an equal balance in that. So, and when I say equal balance, I mean the ideal homeostatic amount for you to maintain that. So if we think of ketoacidosis being a disruption in your pH balance, that is what people are doing in starvation. They are causing a high anion gap metabolic acidosis. And I can go into some more detail on that. So there's this little equation that we like to use, and this is getting super nitty gritty. So I apologize if people don't want any more of this information, but there's a calculation that we do to determine, what the cause is of somebody's acidosis, and we call this the anion gap. It's one of the ways we can have a guess of what caused it, because there's certain conditions that we don't expect there to be an anion gap, and some that we do. Ketoacidosis is a high anion gap metabolic acidosis, and this has relation to do with the electrolytes and their concentrations in the bloodstream. So we think of the kind of the most important ions are sodium, potassium, chloride, and bicarb. And so we use an equation called the anion gap, which is the addition of the concentrations of the anions, or the cations minus the anions. So it's the anion gap. And so you take your sodium and your potassium, and then you add those, and then you subtract the chloride plus the bicarb. And what this is doing is telling us, is there another compound present that's making this balance thrown off? So the term that we're relying on here is electroneutrality, where you can't have, like, I hear nephrologists say this frequently. It's like, you can't have electric blood, you can't have electric pee, because the ions are going to balance out in order to, prevent reactions from going all over the place. So what this is doing, when we subtract the anions from the cations, we get some number. Most people have a number around 10 to 12. But if that number is a lot higher, that means that there's some other molecule causing there to be extra acid in the blood. And so usually it's things like lactate, ketones. There's a whole mnemonic called cat mud piles. And if you want to look that up, it'll tell you all of the common causes of high anion gap metabolic acidosis, some of them being aspirin can cause it. Tylenol actually, like a Tylenol overdose can cause HAGMA. That's the abbreviation for high anion gap metabolic acidosis. And the reason why I'm going into this specifically is because the electrolyte concentration is also equally important as the pH itself. Because if you have someone that's not eating, they're not properly regulating their acid balance because they're having the ketone production, but they're also not intaking sodium, they're not intaking potassium, they're not intaking phosphorus and magnesium. Like these are the big things that probably I'm the most worried about if they don't already have an acidosis. So what all does this mean? So if these specific electrolytes, pretty simply, other than regulating the fluid balance, like how much water is in different parts of your body, these electrolytes are important for your heart function. So abnormalities in your sodium concentration relate to, like, can cause arrhythmias. Abnormalities in potassium can cause arrhythmias. Phosphorus and magnesium also can cause arrhythmias, and all of that can lead to death very, very quickly. Something else that is important to understand that will lead us into the next discussion point of refeeding syndrome. But if you remember the process of metabolism, like we were seeing earlier, go back to this. So when we look at these pathways, and there's only one specific compound listed on here that shows this example, but we see, if you see the term glucose 6-phosphate, that's a phosphate, right? And anything with P at the end here. So ATP is a phosphate-based compound. So it's adenosine triphosphate, 3 phosphates, which comes from phosphorus. You need to have the right ingredients in your pantry in order to make the recipe that you're going to make. So if you are trying to make ATP, which is the source of energy for all of your cells, I guess not all of your cells, red blood cells. Red blood cells will make a little bit of energy through ATP, but they don't have a citric acid cycle and stuff, so they rely on way less. But besides the point, ATP has phosphate, which requires phosphorus. If you are not eating phosphorus, you are not able to produce ATP. So you're not able to produce any energy source. So the amount that you have, that's it. Your body's not going to function. Your muscles are not going to function. Your heart's not going to function. Any pathway requiring ATP is not going to function. So that means every transporter, like your sodium potassium pumps, those require ATP. Those aren't going to work. Your transporters in your intestines are not going to work. Your transporters in your kidneys are not going to work. This is something that, sure, you can study the basics all you want and make whatever intuitive decision about that, but unless you know these fundamental pathways, like, you need to be able to think through this. Like, this is why medicine is fascinating to me, but why it's so difficult. And yeah, you can get phosphate from bone breakdown, because that also leads into calcium balance, because phosphorus and calcium have an interesting little relationship there, which is why you get people with thyroid disease who have issues with bone density. So that's a whole other thing. So like this grinds my gears when people try to make health claims but don't understand these basic things, because the memorization of the whatever's happening here isn't the end game. Like, that's not how we're making our decisions necessarily. It's being able to use these pathways and see what's happening down the line. Like, I can know that, yes, you have a phosphate deficiency. What does that mean for you? That means that you cannot produce ATP. That means that you cannot energize your cells. That means that you are going to waste away unless you get some more somehow, unless you are supplementing. And I'm going to show you here as well. Let's pull this up. This is an EKG. I'm literally just Googling this, just so you can see an example. So I'm accepting that most people in this audience are not in the medical field, but that is okay. I want you to tell me real quick if I can pull up this picture. It's not as good of a picture as I wanted. Hold on. We got this. We can find it. This is a good one. I'm gonna pull this up separately. So as if there's any risk of y'all not interpreting this correctly. Okay. So this here is an EKG. Here we go. Tell me, I just want y'all to tell me, do you think this is normal? And do you think that this can sustain life? This is the EKG. Right. This is a very specific phenomenon. And you can see we have just a bunch of very large waves. And it kind of follows a ribbon pattern. So it starts off small, it gets like really big, and then it goes small. VTAC, it's a type, could technically be considered a type of VTAC. It's more akin to a VFib, but this is a very specific phenomenon. This is torsades. This is torsades. If I can use my French, I do very bad French. Torsade de pointe, which it's supposed to be like a ribbon thing. But this is bad. This is very bad. This is often what is seen before somebody goes into ventricular fibrillation. I cannot speak. Before someone goes into VFib and ultimately cardiac arrest, this might happen. And this happens sometimes through drug interactions, but a lot of times through electrolyte abnormalities. So when you have especially abnormalities in potassium, in magnesium, and phosphorus, you are putting somebody at very, very high risk for torsades. So I would not recommend avoiding supplementing your electrolytes. So along those lines, let's say somebody, goes on this breatharian diet and then they stop and then they start eating again. What's the problem? What's so bad about that? Well, there's another phenomenon called refeeding syndrome, and we're going to get into that as if, all this other stuff wasn't risky enough. And so here's the other thing. So this is touched on in refeeding syndrome, but also touched on in the section on DKA and starvation ketoacidosis, because certain compounds predispose other issues for happening. So if you have somebody who's already not getting enough potassium, and then they go into ketoacidosis, when you give somebody insulin, that shifts your potassium intracellularly. So it drives the potassium that you do have in your bloodstream inside cells so it cannot be accessed. So even if you had enough potassium, your body might not believe you, and it might act as if you don't have potassium, and you might go into torsades and you might go into cardiac arrest because there is no available potassium, which is why when you are treating ketoacidosis, when you're about to give insulin, you need to make sure that their potassium is appropriately high because you know that it's going to go down later. And Scarlett, yes, that is exactly what the issue was in the internment camps, and we're going to get into that here as well. So refeeding syndrome is defined by kind of the surrogate measure is certain level of phosphorus when increasing nutrition following a prolonged period of starvation. So you can technically have refeeding syndrome that does not meet the criteria of like phosphorus abnormalities, but that's kind of how most people measure it, and so that's kind of how we're defining it here. But refeeding syndrome commonly occurs in populations at high risk for malnutrition, ranging from patients with eating disorders to renal failure patients on hemodialysis. It can be fatal if inappropriately managed promptly due to electrolyte and metabolic disturbances that manifest in cardiopulmonary, hematologic, and neurologic dysfunction in these types of patients. So defined as medical complications that result from fluid and electrolyte shifts as a result of aggressive nutritional rehabilitation. So hypophosphatemia is a surrogate marker for refeeding syndrome. So that means low phosphorus is kind of what we're mentioning. So it's the same issue as what I just mentioned with insulin shifting potassium stores. And this paragraph does a really good job explaining it. So in considering the human body's metabolic demand and nutritional states, such as absorptive or a fed state, post-absorptive, a fasting state, and starvation, starvation increases gluconeogenesis and proteolysis. In contrast, metabolic substrates, including vitamins and intracellular electrolytes, are depleted. So you get as you're using the vitamins and using the electrolytes inside the cells, there's less to go around in the cell. So in order to maintain their production capacity, they start pulling those electrolytes and glucose from the bloodstream. So you start increasing the amount inside the cells and also decreasing the amount in the bloodstream. And so as you eat with rising glucose levels, like from eating or from your liver producing more glucose, your countermeasure is an increase in insulin. So that the idea insulin allows your cells to utilize glucose that's circulating in the bloodstream. So you have that increase in glucose. Your pancreas releases insulin saying, hey, we're going to use this sugar for metabolism. And if we have enough, then we're going to start rebuilding some stuff. So you get an increase in insulin, and then that causes the remaining phosphorus and potassium that's in the bloodstream to go into the cell. So that decreases the amount of available extracellular potassium, also known as hypokalemia. And this occurs in part due to the need for phosphorylation of glucose and glycolysis. So phosphorylation is that adding a phosphate or adding a phosphorus to glucose, making glucose 6-phosphate, which heads along down that glycolytic pathway to making ATP, but also through direct stimulation of the sodium-potassium ATP pump. This increase in insulin and the effects of electrolyte migration are compounded by nutritional electrolyte deficiencies. This hypokalemia may lead to cardiac arrhythmias such as torsades, like we just looked at, weakness, fatigue, paralysis, hypoventilation, respiratory distress, and metabolic alkalosis. So you can also get a rebound alkalosis after your acidosis, or you can also have a concurrent alkalosis and acidosis at the same time, which is super fun, and we don't have the time to discussing that today. But if you remember, the lady who, I believe it was a lady, I don't remember, the person who died because their legs didn't work anymore and like started getting like coughing up black sticky substance, which is blood. That's coughing up blood. That paralysis is probably related to hypokalemia. In not necessarily in this case of refeeding syndrome, but in the case of ketoacidosis in that particular case. Yeah, so they kind of go into the way that I mentioned it before. So phosphorus is a critical component of human energy storage and is required to produce ATP. As the body continues to experience starvation, existing phosphorus stores are depleted to sustain metabolic activity, leading to hypophosphatemia, widely observed in patients with refeeding syndrome. So yeah, this is not good. And like it gets to later on, causes a leftward shift in the oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curve, which that's a bit beyond this video. But basically, you lose the ability to either let go or hold on to oxygen in your blood because your tissues need it so much that you just can't hold oxygen anymore. And decreasing or increasing, sorry, it's the backwards of that, increasing hemoglobin's affinity for oxygen. So hemoglobin holds on to it and does not allow oxygen to get to the tissues, which causes metabolism to shut down and causes secondary organ failure. So all of this being said, is starvation, is breatharianism, and possibly subsequent refeeding syndrome worth it for organ failure? No. No, it is not. And people have no idea what they're risking. And this is why people without medical education should not be telling people what to do with their bodies and not be telling people how to manage their nutrition, because you get stuff like this. And something too, I do want to mention. So something like doctors are not experts in nutrition. That is true. However, like I mentioned very frequently, we rely heavily on dietitians. Dietitians do a great job letting us know kind of what nutrients specifically we need to increase for certain people, what sources of that nutrition we can work with, and especially considering, what kind of nutrition can we give somebody if they can't eat for themselves and all that stuff. But when people use the argument that doctors are only given a certain amount of classwork on a particular subject, they don't really understand how medicine is taught. And I think that's because when you're taught at an earlier stage, and I can close this, when you're taught science at an earlier stage, you're taught to memorize processes, and the idea is at that early stage, you're not really looking beyond the information that's being spoon-fed to you. And it's taught differently as you get into graduate level courses, because the focus there is not memorizing facts. It is understanding the foundation, and you can learn a lot on your own in that sense of like you can infer a lot because you have that foundational knowledge. So even if you don't take a whole lot of courses in nutrition, I can understand the process of human metabolism and know where the problems are going to occur in that. I know what low phosphorus is going to do. I know what low potassium is going to do. And I can manage that. So like, sure, you can throw shade at physicians for not being dietitians, which that's not shade. It's just, I'm not that particular specialist, and that's fine. But we know more about this issue than any grifter is going to have, or at least what they're teaching. There's some grifters who know this stuff and are intentionally not teaching it this way. But those advanced classes are more focused on what does this process mean How do I make applications based on that? How do I make decisions based on this? And I think I am going to do a more lecture-based series about metabolism, and especially focusing on human biochemistry and why these pathways are important, and how like having knowledge of these pathways can help you debunk so much bullshit, because you can say, yeah, this doesn't make sense because I know this about phosphorus. I know this about glucose metabolism. And so people buy into fad diets. They buy into grifts because they don't have that knowledge. And there's a bit of a gap to try to teach this. So I know today was a little bit dense kind of at the end, but the why is important. Understanding the cascade of, like, this isn't just a minor deficiency. Like, this can be life or death for people. And if you think that you can use your religion or your spiritual beliefs to tell people that it's okay for them to die from acidosis and refeeding syndrome, uh, that is absolutely disgusting to me, and you should not be teaching. So so that's today's show. We don't have a full episode of Holy Spirits after this, but we have a release. Sorry. We have a release of a prior episode that's going to be going out. So I'm going to see you all over there. And okay, one final thing, because I didn't adequately mention this earlier. But if someone asks you what vitamins are, the one lady that we watched said that you can get your vitamins and things that you need from breathing the air. No, you cannot. And it's important that we recognize that vitamins are cofactors in chemical reactions. That is their function. And some of them are absolutely necessary cofactors, and some of them are just making things a lot easier as cofactors. But why you get so many symptoms with like a B12 deficiency or a folate deficiency is because you need B12 in order to reduce buildup of homocysteine in the blood. So this, if someone asks you what vitamins do, you can answer that they are cofactors. And if people start claiming they know that vitamins do X, Y, and Z, ask them these questions. What is a vitamin? How are you defining a vitamin? What do vitamins do? And a lot of people that say this stuff don't actually know. They'll claim that they studied, but they cannot demonstrate the knowledge that they claim to have, which is very important. Yeah, just look at how many people are starving to death right now because they don't have access to food. Imagine telling them that they should just keep breathing and go stand in the sun. Absolutely disgusting. Yeah, all of this is absolutely disgusting. Like, we can point and laugh at these people all we want, but they are harming real humans, and they should stop. And with that, thank you, everybody. I'll see you. Oh, actually, I didn't send this one over to Holy Spirits. So I'm gonna put the link to Holy Spirits in the side chat, so you all can head over there after this. That was totally my bad. Videos. And this is in about 30 minutes. Here we go. Here is your link. Go hang out in Holy Spirits, and I will see you all next time. Bye, everyone.